just going back a little bit more about the tool, okay? And so from that research, because it's so important to understand the research findings and therefore what's the kind of information that the assessment will tell you, okay? And so the research found that essentially across the Caribbean, there are many leadership theories, but very broadly speaking, there are three broad areas of leadership styles and traits that exist. There's the authoritarian, and thankfully research showed that in our public services, you don't really have authoritarian type leadership that exists. Then the second area is the transactional. And we have found, alas, that tends to be the most predominant style of leadership that exists in our public services, which poses a challenge if we are intending to transform our public services. And then the last area is the transformational leadership category. And so the assessment then breaks that down into 4 broad areas based on the integral model developed by Ken Wilber. And so there is the individual level where leaders who are transformational are very purpose-driven. And their purpose is really rooted in their belief systems and their values. And then that leads to the second area, which is transformational leaders are in action. So they're very deliberate about their own behaviors, how they show up, how they communicate, how they sell vision, how they lead their teams, etc. The third area relates to culture. And so transformational leaders tend to be persons who collaborate. And so they know how to tap into their networks in order to problem solve, to break down barriers, and they're very good at creating a culture of collaboration, right? And the last area, it has to do with systems. And so transformational leaders recognize that they have to put in place where systems, procedures, business processes, policies that is going to support their work and support change and transformation. And so all of those factors create the enabling environment. And so the questions that are asked in the assessment all relate to those 4 areas. And then once all the raters, plug in their responses and the software analyzes it, then there's a whole report that breaks down the findings for each of those areas that I just mentioned. But there's an overall rating that, the organization or the segment of the organization participating in the assessment gets. And so there's a maximum score of 80 that an organization can get. And so if you score between 80 and 64, that organization predominantly has a transformational leadership style, okay? If you score between, I think it's 53 and, let me just check my notes here, between 63 and 52, then you're in the transactional area, right? And like I said, we have found from the research that we've done, the assessment we have done, most organizations fall in that category. And then, of course, if you're under 51 and under, you're talking about authoritarian style. And I say, thankfully, all the analysis assessments we have done, we have not found any organization that has fallen in that category. And so it gives you a really, not only a snapshot view, but the report that you get breaks it down so that you can see where your strengths are and also where the gaps might be. And organizations that have done this kind of assessment have benefited tremendously. One that pops to mind is Tax Administration Jamaica. And they were involved in the initial pilot. And subsequently, they have done the assessment periodically. So each time that they've done it, they look at the results and they create action plans that they implement to improve where they need to close the gaps. And I'm happy to say that they have steadily improved, and the last assessment we did with them, they are now in the transformational leadership zone as an organization.